all exousia, and that means authority, jurisdiction, liberty, power, and right. Authority, jurisdiction, liberty, power, and right. Jesus said, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. He said, all jurisdiction has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Listen, why is jurisdiction important? If you get pulled over by the police, and that's happened to me more than once. If you get pulled over by the police, they only have the authority to do something to you if you're in their jurisdiction. If they're outside of where they have authority, they're just another dude just like you. That makes sense? You can't do anything to me outside of your authority, outside of your realm of influence, outside of where you've been given permission to do something. But Jesus here says all jurisdiction has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So no matter where you go, he has authority and jurisdiction in your life. He said all liberty, all freedom, all openness has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So no matter where you go, Jesus can give you liberty. Does that make sense? Amen. Amen. The authority behind the order. Now, a couple seconds ago, I asked you to do something. I asked you to stand up. I asked you to do a couple things that didn't really make sense, did it? But I wanted to see if I could get you to stand up. I wanted to see if I could ask you a question and request something of you and have it done. Now, the question that we're going to ask at the outset here is, does anybody really like being ordered around? Now, I didn't really order you. I asked you nicely. But you figured since I was standing up front and I had the mic, maybe you should stand up. Might be a little rude if you didn't, right? But listen, does anybody like being ordered around? I don't like taking orders. Anybody ever try to order you around and they don't have the authority to order you around?
Right.
Amen, somebody?
Right.
You ever go to your job and somebody who has the same job as you starts telling you what to do? Like they're over you? Oh, it's just me? Okay, all right. So, and what you think is what you think. You might not say it depending on who you are. I'm looking around, I know a few of you might say it. But depending on who you are, you might not say to them, well, who are you? We got the same job. I know how much you make. We make the same check. You don't have anything over me. I'm not doing nothing that you say.
Okay.
You have no authority over me, right? But if someone that you know has authority over you, that you know has a responsibility to someone higher than them to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, they don't necessarily have to say anything to you. They might walk by and you go, oh, I mean. And when they walk by, you go back to playing spades on the computer. Okay, I got one laugh. Only one of y'all being honest this morning. Amen, somebody. All right, so what I'm saying is, nobody likes to be ordered around. But, we can take orders if we feel that the person giving them has the right to give them. Amen?
Amen. So
what we're going to look at this morning is the authority behind the order. Last week we started talking about commission. We started talking about being commissioned by Christ. Last week we talked about the fact that the word commission means to be sent on a mission. Okay. And more specifically, it means that you have been given the authority to act as an agent of another. So the fact that God commissioned us, that Jesus commissioned us to do certain things, like rescue, reclaim, reconcile, and restore, means that he has the authority to give us the order. So this morning what we're going to talk about, is Jesus.
Okay.
We're just going to spend about 30 minutes talking about Jesus. Is that okay? So the authority behind the order is Jesus, commissioned by Christ. He's the one giving the order. In Matthew 28:18, Jesus says this: all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Now, the Greek word for authority there, or power, depending on which version that you have of the Bible, is exousia. All exousia. And that means authority, jurisdiction, liberty, power, and right. Authority, jurisdiction, liberty, power, and right. Jesus said, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. He said, all jurisdiction has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Listen, why is jurisdiction important? If you get pulled over by the police, and that's happened to me more than once. If you get pulled over by the police, they only have the authority to do something to you if you're in their jurisdiction. If they're outside of where they have authority, they're just another dude just like you. That makes sense? You can't do anything to me outside of your authority, outside of your realm of influence, outside of where you've been given permission to do something. But Jesus here says all jurisdiction has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So no matter where you go, he has authority and jurisdiction in your life. He said all liberty, all freedom, all openness has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So no matter where you go, Jesus can give you liberty. Does that make sense? Amen. Amen. So an order then is an authoritative direction or instruction. An authoritative direction or instruction. I gave you a few directions. You did them. Thank you very much. Right? If that was on tape, that would look good, but it's not. So there we go. All right. So we're talking this morning about Christ. Now, before Jesus even came into the world, Matthew 1:23, the angel said this about him: behold, the virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. We're talking about whether or not Jesus has authority in your life. Amen? Amen. If he is God with us, then you might think that he probably has authority in your life. Before he was even born, God sent the angel to let us know that he has authority in our lives. When Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, who, by the way, did not want to do it because he said, I have need to be baptized. Immediately after, we see this. Then he permitted him. After being baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and we saw the Spirit of God descending as a dove and lighting on him. And behold, a voice out of heaven said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Now listen, we know that Jesus is God's Son. But at this time, the Jews were looking for the Messiah. The Jews were waiting for the one who would come and have authority over them. They were looking for a king. They were looking for a warrior. So when he was baptized, when he submitted to being baptized, when he submitted to what was going on, God opened the heavens and said, for all who could hear, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Now listen, if God said, this is my Son and I'm pleased in him, you know that's giving him some type of credit, some type of authority. Before he came, he said he will be God with us. After he was baptized, he said, this is my Son. I am well pleased with him. So there are many examples of Christ's authority in our lives. We're going to look at just a few, and then we're going to move forward, okay? Matthew 8:23 through 27 reads this. Matthew 8:23-27. You there? Say amen.
Amen.
So Jesus got in the boat with the disciples. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea. And the boat began covered with waves, but Jesus himself was asleep. You've heard this before, you've read this before, but we're talking about the authority of Christ this morning. So there was a great storm on the sea. The disciples were up above on the boat. Jesus was down in the bottom asleep. He wasn't concerned about what was going on. He was resting. How many times are there storms in our lives? And we stay up all night concerned about it. We stay up all night trying to figure out how to make this work, how to fix this. You get on the Google and try to figure out where you can go to get help. You get on the account and push refresh and keep pushing refresh and hoping some more money shows up. Hey man, you talk to your spouse and you keep talking and you think that there's going to be a different answer, but there's no different answer. You're just trying to work it out and you can't sleep. The whole way to work, you just, in your head. Maybe you're using colorful language because you know when you get there, somebody's waiting for you with some storms. But if we call ourselves Christians, and we do, we should remember that even in the storms in our life, all right, Jesus is riding with us. And he's not concerned about the storms in your life. He's not concerned about the storms in your marriage. He's not concerned about the smallness of your account. He's not concerned about the wicked folks on your job. He's not concerned about any of those things. He is resting. So we see the disciples get bothered to the point where they think they're going to die, and they go to wake Jesus. And he says to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" Okay. Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became calm. He had authority over the storm. And if he had authority over that storm, he has authority over your storm. Amen? Amen. Then the men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" In Mark, it says it a little bit different. He says he got up, and Mark 4:39. Mark 4:39 says he got up, rebuked the winds and the sea, said, "Hush, be still. Hush, be still." Can't you just see Jesus saying that in your life right now? Now listen, there's this many people in the room. I say this all the time. This many people in the room, there's got to be a lot of issues and concerns and things that are going on in your life. That's the truth. Christian and non-Christian, you got a lot of things going on in your life. Can't you just see Jesus standing up in your life and saying, "Hush, be still"? Now, you want to sleep like Jesus sleeps. Go down in the bottom of the boat and just go to sleep. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. So Jesus said to them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Do you still have no faith? They've been walking with Jesus, watching what he does, doing what he does. And he says to them, "Why are you afraid? It's just a little wind. It's just a little water. I control this. I have it all under control." We're talking about the authority of Jesus this morning. The disciples marveled at this. What kind of man is this, that he can calm the storms in our life? Amen? Amen. John 11:38. John 11:38, we see Lazarus being brought back from the dead. But we're going to look at, I know you've read these things, but we just want to look at a couple of things. John 11:38. Now, Mary and Martha had called for Jesus days before when Lazarus was just sick. He was sick, and they said, "Lazarus, your friend Lazarus is sick, Jesus. Come. We know if you can come, you know if you come, you can heal him. We know that he will survive if you just make it here. We know, God, that if you just intervene in our life, that this situation would get better. We know that if you just come and do what you do, that it will get better." And what we have to realize in that question, or in that upsetness that comes later when Jesus waited purposely for Lazarus to die. He waited purposely for Lazarus to die. What we have to realize in that situation is that we have to expand our belief. Expand our faith in him. Jesus might be waiting purposely for something to die in you right now. We're calling for him because we feel like if you just intervene right now, because what I can see, from what I can see, if you don't intervene right now, Jesus, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to die. My life is going to give out. My marriage is going to give out. My everything is going to quit. My kids aren't going to make it. If you don't intervene right now, I'm not going to make it. And what happens so often is we call on Christ. We call on him. We say, Jesus, now, please. And what we're doing is attempting to order the master. We're attempting to have authority over the one who has authority. Because we can't see everything. We only see what's right in front of us. Amen, somebody. Listen, every day I drive on these streets. And every day, at least 5 or 6 people irritate me. Because the one in front of me is not driving fast enough. The one next to me is hanging out in my blind spot and I can't get over. The one 2 cars up is holding everybody up because I'm in the carpool lane and I can see 12 lengths of cars ahead of the one that's in front of me, ahead of that Prius. Why are you driving so slow in a Prius? You're not burning gas. Get out of the way. All in front of you. Because from what I can see, you're stopping me. From what I can see, you're limiting where I need to go. But I can't see miles ahead. Jesus sees everything. So when we call on him and try to authoritatively make him do stuff because we think that he's someone that we can fetch, and we get upset because he's not in a hurry to fix the situation that we're in. But Jesus has authority and knows everything. He knows the end from the beginning. So when he got there, he was deeply moved within, looking at the people around. He knew what he had to do. He knew what he was coming to do. Did not change the compassion that he had for the people. People were weeping. His brother, his sisters were saddened and they were heartbroken. And he knew that he was coming to do this thing, but he says in 38, he was deeply moved within and came to the tomb. There was a stone laying against it. Now he just got there, and this is what he says. Remove the stone. Remove the stone. First order. Get that out of the way. Whatever's holding you back, get it out of the way. Whatever you can move, move it. I'm going to do something with you and for you, but whatever you can move, move it. He has authority in your life, but he's not going to take over everything. He says, whatever you can move, move it. And Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be a stench, for he's been dead 4 days. Her view was limited. Jesus said to her, did I not say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? You're talking to the one who you felt just weeks ago, just days ago, that if he got here, he could fix it. But don't we get something? Now listen. We're going to be an honest church, amen?
Amen.
Don't we get into places sometimes in situations where we feel like maybe this is too far gone? Maybe this went too far. Jesus, if you had just got here 2 weeks ago, before this happened, my faith would have grew and I would be on fire for you, but right today, it doesn't look like you're going to work it out for me. And I'm skeptical because my faith needs to grow. So they removed the stone. Then Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. I knew that you always would hear me, but because of the people standing around, I said it, so that they may believe that you sent me. So that they may believe that you sent me. When he said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus, come forth. Now, in those few words, a couple things happened. One, Lazarus resumed his body. All the decay was taken away. He gained strength and all the faculties of his mind, because we see later that he's coming out and Jesus tells them, now it's your part again. Remove the wrappings and free him. You can do that part. I did my part. Now do yours. Unbind him and let him go.
Sit down, Greg.
And then finally, in John 14:6, John 14:6, Jesus says these words, and this is, there's no wiggle room here. If we're talking about authority, if we're talking about who has authority to give you a commission, to order you, to tell you what to do, if nobody else does, Jesus does. He says this. Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You gotta check those articles, the. There's only one. If I have the water bottle, there's only one of them. The, singular. He did not say I am a way. And that's what people want to tell you now. And that's what people want to get you to compromise now. Jesus is not a way to salvation. He is not a way to heaven. He is not a wonderful man. He is not a prophet. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Nobody else claims that. You can talk about Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, whoever you want to talk about. Jesus said, I am the way. Only one. Don't compromise on that. He has all authority. And just because you don't accept his authority, we've said this before, just because you don't recognize his authority does not mean he does not have authority over your life. That's a pretty easy concept to figure out. I have these kids, right? And God has given me authority over those kids. They can say, you ain't my daddy. They won't. That's not the truth. You can stand before the judge and say, you have no authority over me. And they'll still lock you up and put you in jail. Just because you don't recognize the authority doesn't mean that it's not there. Okay. Finally, now this next part is going to be a couple minutes. Go with me to the book of Mark again. Mark chapter 9. Mark chapter 9. We're going to go through quite a bit of this. In Mark 9, we find Jesus and his all-stars, so to speak, Peter, James, and John. A couple of different times, he's only taken Peter, James, and John somewhere. This time, and at least one more, when he was about to be crucified, he took Peter, James, and John with him and said, stay here, watch with me, and pray. So this time, in Mark 9, verse 2, 6 days later, there was something that happened before, and chapter 8, you can go back and read that. Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, and brought them up on a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. Verse 3, and his garments became radiant and exceedingly white, as no launderer on earth can whiten them. Now Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him, and he allowed them to see him in his glory.
Okay.
He allowed them to see him as he is. Isn't that wonderful? If you allow yourself to spend some time with Christ, if you spend a little extra time, go a little bit further with him, he'll allow you to see him as he is. He was transfigured, changed, morphed in their sight. So they had been walking with him all this time, and they knew that he was a miraculous healer. They knew these things, but now they got to see him in his fullness, so to speak. And they had to be amazed, and we will find out that they were. Verse 4, Elijah appeared along with him and Moses, and they were talking to Jesus. So he took them out by themselves. He was transfigured, changed in their sight. He became glowing in their sight. How their hearts felt. They got to see how their hearts felt. Have you ever been in a time where you could feel the presence of God? So strong. You know that he's moving and working in your life. And he's changing things in your heart. Imagine now that presence being shown in front of you. Not just where you can feel it, but now you can see him glowing in front of you. And he took them and he allowed them to see this. And Elijah, the prophet, was there. And Moses, the lawbringer, was there. So in this moment, they saw Jesus in his fullness. And they saw Elijah, the prophet, representing the prophets. And Moses, the lawbringer, representing the law. And you see now the law, the prophets, and the fulfillment of those in one space, in one time, in the fullness of who he is. And he's talking with them. Fullness was displayed at that time. And the disciples didn't know what to do with it. It blew their minds. So they figured, let's do what we know how to do. Jesus said it would be good. It would be good, Jesus, if we build 3 tabernacles right here, right now. Build 3 places right here, right now. One for Elijah, one for Moses, one for you. Let's do that. That's what we should do. Because that's what my understanding tells me. That's what my religiosity tells me, that when something wonderful happens, we build something to monument it. And then we come back to it and we say, this happened right there. Yep, I was there. We don't do that? Some of us still talk about high school. Amen. I'm 55 years old almost. No, I'm joking. I'm only 45. But some of us still talk about that time. And it was cool, it was fun. Some of us still talk about college. They built a monument to college and how wonderful it was when I was young and doing dumb stuff. Right? Some people build a monument to their sin days. And they'll talk to you about when they were in sin and how bad they were, as if it was like a badge of, authority. So because I was so terrible, now I'm here. And that monument is still there. I can go back to it anytime. They said, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know what to do with this knowledge. I don't know what to do with this information because I'm limited. So I want to limit God to these things that I can touch.
Right.
So often we limit God to our own understanding. But in the next verse there, he says, then a great cloud came over. A great cloud settled over them. And they heard a voice saying, this is my beloved son. We're talking about the authority of Jesus right now. The authority behind the order. This is my beloved son. The first time after the baptism, he said, in whom I'm well pleased. What does it say in your Bible now? This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Listen to him. The God of the universe is saying, this is Jesus, my son. Listen to him. Then in verse 7, we see that after that, only Jesus was there. Wonderful imagery. The prophets, the law, the fulfillment of that. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. And then it's only Jesus standing there. Talking about the authority behind the commission that we're given. Verse 8, Jesus told them not to talk about this until after his resurrection. A couple of times in the scripture, Jesus tells people not to say anything. Why would he tell the disciples not to talk about this specifically until after the resurrection? Because everybody is not ready to handle the truth. That means there were some people following him. Some of the disciples, 9 to be exact, that may not have been ready to accept the fullness of who Jesus was. We'll see it later. Because at his crucifixion, only John was there. When he was taken away, everybody ran. His boy that was there, Peter, cursed him and said, I don't know him. But he said, don't say anything because the people are not ready. Listen, we don't have to say everything that God tells us. Some stuff is just for you. And some stuff he says, this is for you. Hold on to it until I tell you to give it up. Hold this for me until the right time. Everybody can't handle everything. Amen? And this last part, verse 16, we see Jesus, and we see Peter, James, and John coming down from the mountain. Go with me. We're still in Mark 9:16. Jesus, James, and John coming down from the mountain. We'll start at 14. When they came back to the disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and some scribes arguing with them. Immediately, when the entire crowd saw him, they were amazed and began running up to him. Now, this is a little bit different. If we skip past that, we miss something. That's a little bit different from what normally happens. Usually, Jesus does something, or they expect him to do something, and they crowd around. After he does something, then they crowd. This time, it said they saw him, and they ran to greet him. And he asked them, what are you discussing with them? What are you talking about with them? Because in a couple of verses ago, it said the scribes were arguing with the disciples. He came to a place where he saw his people, his disciples, arguing with the religious folk. And he said, what are you discussing with them? And one of the crowd answered him, Teacher, I brought my son, possessed with a spirit which makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it slams him into the ground, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and stiffens out. He said, I brought my son to you because he's possessed. And I don't know what to do. Well, later on we'll find out he's been like this since he's been a child. We don't know how old he is, it doesn't say, but he's been like this from childhood. Anytime the demon or the spirit seizes him, he goes into convulsions, and we'll find out later also that the spirit that's in him tries to kill him. Now look, I've been a parent for 9 years, 10 years. Just turned 10, sorry. 10 years. And there are times when my daughter gets sick and my son gets sick. and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. They'll cough, they'll sneeze, they'll have fevers. There's not a whole lot I can do about it but do what the doctor tells me to do and wait for it to go away. But when you see your child struggling, when you see your child in pain, when you see a loved one, if you don't have children, you see a loved one in pain, and there's nothing that you can do about it, how inadequate do you feel when you can't help your child specifically? How weak do you feel when you cannot help your child? This man's child had been going through this since childhood. And he brought him to Jesus, and he said he had heard that Jesus heals people. So I'm going to bring my son to you, Jesus, because I believe that you can heal him. But you weren't here. So I talked to them people that say they follow you, but they couldn't do nothing about it. So Jesus says, and Jesus answered him and said, "O unbelieving generation," we're in 19, "how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you?" It's a harsh statement after the man tells him that his son is sick and hurt and needs help. He says, "Oh, unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me." So he brought the boy to him. When he saw him, he immediately the spirit threw him into convulsions, and falling onto the ground, he began rolling and foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" How long has this been happening to him? He's been trying to heal him. No doubt he's been trying to get healed since childhood. How many of you are parents in here? How many of you have people that you love that you would do anything for? No doubt that he's been trying to get his son healed since his childhood. It doesn't say it there, but there's no doubt about it. He had gone to people who said that they could do something. He had gone to the seers or the witchcraft people probably who said they could do something about it. He had gone to whoever was studying medicine at the time who said they could do something about it. He tried everything, I know. But Jesus says, how long has this been happening? How long have we been dealing with stuff that we need to just bring to Jesus? How long have we been dealing with things that we think we can figure out? How long have we been going everywhere and every which way, asking everybody who we think might have some knowledge about it? How long have we been doing that? How long have we been struggling with something and find ourselves sleepless and stiff and grinding our teeth and getting foaming mad about stuff that we just need to bring to the Master? How long, Jesus said. And he says to him, we're almost done. And he says, from childhood has often thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. The Bible tells us if we're going to ask God for anything, that we should do it what? Without doubt. But he's broken, this man. And he's weary, this man. And he's looking at his son now, going into convulsions again. He's there where the healing should be, where he had already asked the disciples to heal him, and he's there now, waiting for the healing, waiting for someone with authority to make a difference